Yeah, so first off, we're going to start off with some words about the RWFI, this Hydrogen 101 series, and other things from Anthony Armley. And then we'll get right into it with the main presentation from Crystal York, the co-PI on the H2Edge project from EPRI. So without further ado, Anthony, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
Okay, thanks, Matt. And welcome everyone to our Hydrogen 101 webinar series. If you haven't met me before, my name is Anthony Armley, and I am the federal coordinator of this regional workforce initiative, which we started back in 2017. Next slide, please. So just a quick recap of what we're trying to do here. So NETL, RWFI, we've historically hosted many webinars, especially like the Energy 101 series, taking technical topics at the lab and introducing them at a high level and incorporating some workforce development topics into those technology discussions. What we've pivoted to lately is these emerging occupations around carbon management, so hydrogen, methane, and we'd like to develop some more in the future. So the Hydrogen 101 webinar series is where we're just trying to bring in subject matter experts, whether it's from DOE, NETL, or outside organizations such as EPRI, to discuss, these emerging occupations, the topics around hydrogen workforce, which is what we'll hit on today. On our methane series, that's, we'll focus on that type, the workforce around methane, and there'll be in the future some other carbon management workforce opportunities as well to talk about those. In our first, just recapping our first webinar, which you can find on our webpage, I'll add it to the chat here shortly. The first one was from a participant was from Energy Futures Initiative, Madeline Schomburg. She discussed for our audience the findings from their fact book and report related to building stronger community engagement in the hydrogen hubs, where they surveyed nearly 5,000 individuals hailing from the disadvantaged or tribal, labor, and environmental justice communities. It was a great discussion, learned a lot. Today, we're going to talk on our second Hydrogen 101 webinar about workforce training. So really excited about that. Next slide, Matt. I think we'll have a good discussion today as well. And if you have any questions, please feel free to add them to the chat, and we'll touch on those at the end. So recapping here, so we in addition to our webinars, we also launched a web resource page around hydrogen. We're doing the same thing for methane. Basically, what we're trying to do is pull from different avenues where there's funding opportunities or just information in general that you may have to go to multiple sites for. We're trying to pull it all into like a one-stop shop type thing, where you don't have to bounce around all these different sites. We're going to try to pull them for you into one. We're pulling content from EPRI, H2Edge, Energy Futures Initiative, and anyone else that has, some key content that we think would be valuable to our stakeholders and those in general that have an interest in the hydrogen economy. More funding opportunities and upcoming events as well you can find on those pages. Next slide. Ultimately, what we're trying to do here is under the Regional Workforce Initiative umbrella is striving to be a resource and a hub for any of the carbon management emerging occupations and the technologies associated with them, and then focusing on the workforce implications, trying to have a prepared workforce, when these advanced technologies come to fruition and create the demand for alternative energy options. We're doing the legwork behind the scenes. We're trying to be a convener and share information and work closely with all of our stakeholders. So some of the things that we're focusing on beyond just the webinars and the sharing of information is developing a skills taxonomy, workforce analytics. How do people's skills from oil, natural gas sector transfer over to these emerging occupations? Impact tracking, that's where we're looking at different jobs that can be created, whether it's direct, induced, or indirect type jobs. And then looking at a workforce preparedness or readiness index. So how prepared are people to work in this industry? And then all of those things factor into what we call a hydrogen playbook. We're interested in partnering with other organizations such as EPRI on putting together this hydrogen playbook, similar to what they did in Australia, but we're going to make it our own. Success stories and just try to lay out, how this starts from point A to point B. Incorporating your community into it, jobs, training, all of those things. And I think once we, hit on all of these different things, we're going to be like a freight train running down the tracks here, because we're going to have, the money that's being put into like the hydrogen hubs itself. Having this prepared workforce down the road is only going to make it more successful. And so the fact that we're taking the effort now, really early on, to have these discussions and to talk about training and talk about where there's where there are gaps in the skills matrix, I think is going to pay big dividends down the road. And so that's what we're excited about. We're also looking to continue this regional and national dialogue around all things workforce when it comes to energy and advanced manufacturing career opportunities. And then lastly, I would just ask you, the audience, hey, if you have any ideas, if you have any thoughts, collaborative ideas, especially, reach out to us. On the next slide here, Matt, we'll have my information. Many of you we've partnered with in the past, but we really hope to partner with even more of you in the future. So again, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll put the link to that, our webpage here in the chat. Feel free to check it out. All of our webinars, we record them and then add it to our archived webinars page. So, use it as a future resource if you can. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. And I'll just reiterate Anthony's point around how relative this is for the region that we work in. The announcement of ARC2 getting its first round of round one funding is pretty big for the region. And I'll reiterate, we'll have a session at the end of this discussion session. And one of the really important things we want to get out of these webinars and also any contact that we have around, collaborations is your guys' input on what's next. What would you like to hear about? This won't be the only workforce and Hydrogen 101. There's plenty to talk about there. Our first one was around community engagement. You can look forward to seeing more around community benefits themselves. So these are by far not one and dones, but we would love your input on what you'd like to see and what type of people you'd like and what type of information. So without further ado, we'll have one of those subject matter experts joining us right now and giving us a little bit of background information around the H2Edge project. A lot of you probably have heard of the H2Edge project before. It's been around for a bit, and they're pumping out some really great stuff. So here to talk about some of that stuff is the co-PI, Crystal York. Crystal, are you ready to go?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So yeah, my name is Crystal York. A little bit of background on me is I work for the Electric Power Research Institute, which H2Edge is housed under, and within EPRI, I work for the Low Carbon Resources Initiative, which is an initiative within EPRI that focuses on a lot of different things along both the hydrogen value chain as well as other low carbon fuels, ammonia, renewable fuels, synthetic fuels, and the like. I work specifically, lead the part of LCRI that focuses on hydrogen workforce development, as you can probably tell through this talk, as well as community engagement and environmental justice related research. But I do have a technical background. I have a PhD in electrical engineering, and I do some stuff on that as well through our electrolysis team. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so H2Edge, we would like to acknowledge the Department of Energy, the Hydrogen Fuel Cell Technology Office funds this work along with the Low Carbon Resources Initiative, and we appreciate their support in this effort. Next slide. So workforce development, the big picture kind of stepping out here, it's obviously very important for any industry, and it's definitely important for the hydrogen economy as well. Education and workforce developments are key enablers for a low carbon future, whether that be in the renewable energy industry or the hydrogen industry. And the hydrogen industry is expected to grow and thus create more jobs within that industry. So you probably know, a lot of people on this call, that hydrogen exists. It's being produced every day within the United States and around the world. But at the scale that we're thinking about moving towards, we are expecting to create jobs in other industries that hydrogen hasn't touched before, as well as just more jobs in general. So increasing that awareness and collaboration is important in this space, as well as training, so that we can enable a just transition for the energy sector overall. Next slide. So the H2 Edge program, to accomplish some of those goals that I just put forward in the previous slide, we are working to establish and build partnerships through both industry and universities, and by bringing everyone together for engagement activities. We're increasing training and education at both the university level and the professional development level. And then we are also assessing workforce needs through two kind of gaps assessments that are connected in a lot of ways though, but the two gaps assessments, an academic gaps assessments and a professional gaps assessment. And I will, throughout this talk, I will work through all of those points. Next slide. Oh, yeah. So highlighting some of the accomplishments up front. Like I said, we are trying to establish collaborations, and through that we have created a university network and an industry advisory board. We have developed course material at the professional level through 5 in-person courses that were both, well, the 5 courses were presented both in person and virtually. And there's also been courses developed by our 3 partner universities at their individual universities, as well as a shared module that they are offering to our affiliate universities. We're also establishing and building the network and creating collaborations through hosting workshops. We did a virtual workshop back in March that was mostly focused on our advisors and members. And then the in-person workshop that we had back in July invited more people, not just our advisors and members, to attend so that we could get a lot of the stakeholders in the room. And then, like I said, we're doing 2 gaps assessments, and throughout all of this, we're making sure that safety is of the utmost importance. At the University of Delaware, they have a fuel cell lab, and through this project, they were able to create a lab safety plan with the help of the Hydrogen Safety Panel. And speaking of the Hydrogen Safety Panel, all of our 5 course materials at the professional level, all of the safety-related materials within those courses have been evaluated by them, and their feedback has been implemented in those courses. Next slide. So this is our current network. You can see the university network on the left, and it's getting a little crowded, so I may have to figure out how to move around the icons or do something else with this map. But basically we have 23 universities and we're expecting to grow. The advisory board are made up of industries, mostly utility companies, because that is the relationship that EPRI and LCRI usually have, is with utility companies, but we also invite any industries to be able to be a part of this. But yeah, getting back to our university network, you can see that there are 3 partner universities indicated by the stars: Oregon State University, University of Delaware, and University of Houston. Those universities were chosen in the initial funding announcement and initial proposal to develop materials for the broader university network. However, there are a lot of strengths within the university network, and they are also developing their own materials and sharing collaboratively across this network and with probably people even outside of this network. For example, Georgia Tech and Penn State have a strong hydrogen combustion program, and there's, like I said, the University of Delaware has a strong fuel cell lab background. Cal State LA has a hydrogen refueling station on their campus. So there's even affiliate universities are definitely contributing to this program overall. Next slide. So like I said, we have 3 partner universities that have been not only creating courses at their own university, but developing course material that can be shared with the broader university network. And they all kind of bring their own strengths. So the University of Delaware has a strong fuel cell lab background. Oregon State has developed some capstone projects and are sharing their ideas with the broader network. And the University of Houston is not only bringing that technical background, through a technical course that they developed through the chemical engineering department, but they're also bringing their business side of things to the H2 Edge network and has created a business course through their College of Business. Next slide. So H2 Edge wants to engage with a broad range of stakeholders and diverse communities to accelerate the energy transition and to be effective and inclusive and support that just transition. And by doing this, in part, we are making sure to outreach to historically Black colleges and universities, as well as minority serving institutions. HBCUs, we are currently expanding and we are really excited to do that. But we did a lot of listening and engaging with these groups and brought them out to our workshop back in July in order to learn more and be able to support the development of H2 Edge as we move forward. Next slide. So the workshop I just mentioned, we have a summary slide deck for this workshop on our website, and I can put the link to the website there in a little bit. But overall, this, and we also have all the slide decks available on our website too, from all of the different presentations. We had 40 speakers present, and like I said, it wasn't just from our advisory board and university network. We invited a broad range of stakeholders from other industries, from labor associations. NETL presented, thank you, and as well as government and other nonprofit organizations, all presented at this, and we are very proud of what we were able to bring together with over 70 attendees. Yeah, next slide. And this is another slide from our workshop. We not only had speakers and panels, but we had a collaborative breakout group activity where we were able to identify some key challenges and themes throughout that were identified in panels and speakers throughout the workshop, but we also tried to identify some solutions during this collaborative activity. And those key takeaways are listed on this slide, and you'll be able to see them, especially and other slides and key takeaways from the workshop on the summary slide deck. But basically, not all of these key takeaways we can do at H2 Edge, but we hope to do some of them, contribute to some of them, and also encourage the people that we are engaging with to also help us out with these activities. Yeah, next slide. So this is one of the things that we're doing to increase training and education. And like I said, we had some learnings coming out of the Oregon State capstone projects, and now we're developing those learnings to increase some opportunities for capstone projects in historically Black colleges and universities. Right now, we are creating those contacts and creating more contacts. We do have some HBCU affiliate universities, but we are reaching out to more. And then eventually we will, in upcoming very soon, probably next month, start deploying these capstone projects. So, and then at the end, we expect to receive and share results, disseminate those insights, and probably host a webinar where they can present their insights at. And this is not the only thing that will be coming out of HBCU engagement, student engagement, engaging with the wider community. We are also expecting to do other collaborative opportunities such as focus groups, which was a one of those key takeaways that was on the previous slide that we got from the workshop, is that more focus groups may around a very specific subject may be very beneficial. So next slide. And then we're also increasing training and education through professional short courses. Like I said, we have 5 courses. All of them were taught last year in an in-person format. Now we're teaching them in a virtual format, and our 5th course is at the end of this month. And you can register using that QR code, or I could add the link to the chat after I'm done. And then early next year, and continuing out through the end of the award with the DOE, it is concluding in the September 2025 timeframe. We will be also releasing computer-based training before that time, which will be some self-paced recorded modules that you can go through at your own pace. Yeah, and the power generation course is open for anybody, so feel free to register. It is free to do so. Next slide. So this is probably what a lot of you are maybe the most interested in. And I mean, I really like all of that stuff that we're doing, but some people are very keen to know about how we are assessing workforce needs and our gaps assessment. So throughout this process, we are engaging not just with the H2Edge affiliates, partner universities, and advisors, but the wider and many other organizations, many of whom came to our workshop, and many of whom we have been engaging with for a long time in order to feed insights into these gaps assessments. So some initial takeaways is that we are realizing that there is a lack of insight on the specific hydrogen workforce requirements of the industry. There's also a lack of a data-driven strategy to identify and address the knowledge and skill gaps. And there is a challenge to understanding the multiple complex systems across the value chain. And so we are using these gaps assessments to try to inform some of those challenges, but that's obviously a big task. So that's why we have all of these other organizations that we're collaborating with. Next slide. So this kind of just outlines the purpose of the key initial takeaways from both the gaps assessments. So the purpose is to inform stakeholders which hydrogen topics are and are not well developed, equitably distributed, and aligned with workforce projections. And we also want to increase awareness and engagement with hydrogen topics in the industry. So hydrogen topics in the industry. So we are in the middle of doing this, but we do have some initial results that we are able to share, but results will be used, the final results will be used to focus resources and address the gaps identified. Because like I mentioned, H2Edge DOE funding is running out in September, but we do expect to continue this program in some way. But we're using these gaps assessments to inform what we should focus on in the future, and what partners we need to make to help address those gaps. And although we can't do everything, like I said, there are other organizations that we are partnering with in order to address some of those. So next slide. Yeah, so we started off by looking at some of the reports that are already out there. And these aren't all of them. Many of you may know about Houston's report from Accenture. There's also a South African report that I know of. And earlier, the Australian report was was mentioned, but basically there is a lot of different reports out there, and they're all use different methodologies, but they all are very informative. So we did start off by looking at some of these published reports. Next slide. And even before this, we actually did at EPRI, not through H2Edge, EPRI and LCRI did a report on some of the staffing requirements for hydrogen production facilities. So this is the high level takeaways for that. So although when we talk about moving towards electrolysis and maybe some other low carbon ways to make hydrogen, they do expect for electrolysis to decrease in the number of staff needed, but that may there's a lot of different details within this report, but basically operating electrolysis facility would have lower staffing requirements than the other kinds of hydrogen production facilities. However, there is added complexity in other places in the value chain. So maybe hydrogen distribution and transportation, and using hydrogen at the end will become more complex as well, and jobs could shift up and downstream based on that. So next slide. And so going back to what H2Edge is doing, this was an initial survey that we put out to just universities that we were connected with, and others that our three partner universities were connected with, and we surveyed. So it was a very small survey, and these are just preliminary results, but we asked if, oh wait, sorry, that was a different slide. This is the initial screening of academic offerings of the largest and top ranked universities. This was the most recent results from that. And by screening those largest and top ranked universities, we did see that 89% offered hydrogen specific curriculum. 43 of the 53 offered multiple courses across multiple departments. So it is kind of hard to pick out those hydrogen specific details, because sometimes they're not just in the engineering department. And then at least 9 have larger collaborative programs and initiatives at the Institute that have to do with energy and hydrogen related things. But we are planning on screening more of this. Data will be screened for terminology to better define the content and identify topical gaps. And a few may not offer any hydrogen specific curriculum, but once again, these are the largest and top ranked universities. So it may be that hydrogen courses are available, are available at those, but maybe not available at smaller universities. So we are making sure, we are trying to screen also the smaller universities as well. So next slide. So like I said, we are trying to, this talks about what universities we are screening, and in the middle you can see, like I said, we're trying to screen small and rural universities to see if the courses are equitably distributed, as well as screen historically Black colleges and minority serving institutions. Next slide. And so this just talks about also at the bottom is those surveys that I was talking about. We surveyed initially, because I thought that was that slide, but we did survey 20 faculty within engineering departments at 19 universities. So it was a very small survey, and from that survey we identified 30 unique courses including hydrogen-related curriculum, which includes electrochemistry and electrochemical-related courses. And 2 mentioned hydrogen in the title, so very few mentioned hydrogen specifically in the title of the course. So that's what I was trying to say with it may be hard to find because it may be in the course description or not. They may just talk about it for a couple days during the course. So yeah, next slide. And then these are some of our preliminary insights based on the professional gaps assessment. So all of those were on the academic gaps assessment, but based on our professional gaps assessment, there are hydrogen specific gaps, like I said, in the lack of clarity on workforce requirements, unequitable distribution of content and knowledge, and a need to broaden distribution of electrochemistry in the university courses. And we need more insight and need at topical and regional and institutional level. And we need to make connections across the value chain. Sometimes we're in our silos, but we need to also understand policy and regulation, engineering and consulting firms, and the project developers, and we kind of all have to work together on that. So next slide. And these are, this is what we're going to be doing next. So based on all this analysis, we have found that there's a lot of different programs, people working on similar things, people working on different things and maybe they all need to come together and at least be aware that each other exists. So what we're doing is creating a survey and eventually going to put the results on a map. So we're collecting data for this, and it will eventually be a map on our website. So survey will be deployed soon, and if you have a hydrogen or energy related workforce development type program at your university, in your industry, some other national labs, we are engaging with NETL on this. And then we will screen, standardize, and update the results semi-regularly. And this is to try to support the creation of regional and topical roadmaps. So I kind of try to use the 2 examples of how this could be used. You could see people in your area that are working on similar or collaborative things, and you could try to reach out to them and engage with them. Or you could see a program in a different location that is doing something that you would like to bring to your location and reach out to them and collaborate, get any lessons learned and best practices from them based on their experience. So yeah, next slide. So these are just some important insights, and we can kind of end on this slide from the academic and professional gaps assessments. There are quite a few challenges still in the workforce for hydrogen, but it is important that the energy transition topics and other energy transition workforce is also supported. So, and that resources overall on energy literacy overall is better communicated at the university level. And even a lot of people are talking about before that, bringing awareness to the high school and middle school level. So exposing students to the energy system and energy careers early can be very important. Hydrogen related curriculum is very complex. And that requires a large domain of expertise. So you don't, at every university, no one university will be an expert in all of hydrogen. We have people that we engage with that focus on hydrogen safety, hydrogen fuel cells, hydrogen refueling stations. So instead of trying to be an expert in everything, it's probably better to get that more specific expertise. It's hard to keep up with the rapid change across the technology and economics and policy. And because of that, these static gaps assessments while they can be useful, sometimes we found that maybe that mapping exercise that we're trying to do, where we update it on occasion, can be helpful where and keep up with that rapid change. Electrochemistry is specifically needed for the hydrogen sector and the growing electrolysis area. So a lot of schools will have electrical engineering, chemical engineers, mechanical engineering, but electrochemistry does seem to be a little bit more niche. And R&D is still important. We talk about like a lot of that hands-on learning, but training on new industrial technologies relies on new technological development as well. Although hands-on and learning and is important as well. So the solutions that we found is that collaboration is amongst the most important, so we don't duplicate our efforts, and focus on the hubs and the clusters is something we're looking at, sharing cross-sector knowledge. So not just those technical courses, but also sustainability, life cycle assessment, social metrics, economics, and other topics should be integrated into educational programs. Focusing on place-based objectives. So like I said, you can't do everything. And also some locations, it may make sense for different hydrogen education than others. And then connect with other programs. I think I drove that point home a lot. So I think there's just one more slide, and that's my summary slide. So yeah, I'm done. I tried to go as fast as possible, but that was probably a lot of information. So
No, this
yeah.
this is perfect. Yeah, excellent. So yeah, we'll start off. I'm gonna read a couple of questions or statements, and then I think I'll try to take the first one, and then we'll start moving on from there. So will most of the hydrogen from methane be separated, produced near the source, and distributed via a hydrogen dedicated system of pipelines right of ways to end users, or the methane be distributed via existing pipelines right to satellite hydrogen plants near the end use plants? The current distribution plan will, of course, impact training and education. So I think we're probably going to try to address maybe a tech kind of 101 at one point, in which we're going to try to describe some of the different types of hydrogen technology, and maybe some of the, it's going to vary right now, because there are, if you just take a look at the hubs, there are a lot of different approaches to different types of technology and different types of feedstocks. And so that's going to impact also where those feedstocks are coming from, whether they're far away or close or adjacent. So, and obviously, yes, they will, each of these different technologies will have educational impacts or workforce impacts. And so we look forward to that discussion. So yeah, so I think that one is, so obviously it's going to, and kind of segues into my first question for Crystal. So most of this is revolving around the professional workforce. I think that was the original intent of the H2Edge project. And so I think, and I'm glad you brought up the workshop that was this summer. There was a lot of, there was community colleges that were participating in that. There was some discussion around, supporting K-12. But what do you see EPRI's role in trying to do all the other stuff? And maybe it's one of those things that you have to have collaborators for. I think we concentrate mostly on the technical workforce side and not the professional workforce side. So we obviously are happy to collaborate. But yeah, so that was the original intent, right? So to look at universities in the colleges system and see what the needs were for the professional workforce, correct?
Yeah. So H2Edge was tasked by the Department of Energy to mostly focus on the university side, as well as the professional industry side that may be needing some upskilling in what they're doing, like engineers and such. However, like you said, we are very focused on collaborating with those organizations that are mostly focusing on labor unions and the skilled workforce. We had you guys come out and you all touched on that. We also collaborated or had a speaker come from the West Virginia Union and building and construction trades come and speak at our event, as well as the Center for Energy Workforce Development, which also collaborates with unions and those types of people, as well as other others. And then finally, PNNL, the Pacific Northwest National Lab, is just starting a program that is being funded by the Department of Energy and focused more on that hands-on training. But we have seen that a lot of labor unions already have their own working and training programs. And although they may need some specific hydrogen materials here or there, it is just kind of, the hydrogen industry is just trying to is just growing in this area. And so a lot of those labor unions and trade organizations are focused on training in their local areas for work that is already in existence. So a lot of, and that's the same with community colleges. They won't integrate that much training and workforce development initiatives into their program unless there is a specific job ready and lined up at the end. So that is a kind of a problem. It's kind of like what you hear with a lot of the hydrogen. It's like there's a little bit of chicken and egg thing happening there, whatever. But there is already, like I said, too, and a lot of us already know this, hydrogen exists, and there's already some local training in the Houston and Louisiana area. And we are also collaborating with organizations from both of those areas. So yeah, so right now focus more on collaboration and trying to make sure we get those partnerships and then get those programs that do exist for trades and labor unions on that mapping, and then maybe even directing people in the right direction, if that makes sense. So
yeah, and I think that addressed one of the other questions, so I won't have to read that. But yeah, that was a great synopsis. You also brought up, like, again, there was a lot of lessons learned and outcomes from that workshop. And I think one of the things that I've said is that, like, it was really eye-opening for us, because we're like, you feel like you're doing these things in a vacuum, but there's, when you convene that, you've seen that there's tons of different types of, activities going on around workforce training, professional level and technical level and beyond. Does EPRI want to play the role as a convener? Because I think that was the first workshop I've ever been to that there was that many, I guess, spoons in the soup at the same time. So is that something that you guys would?
I know that EPRI does have experience doing that in other programs that's outside of the LCRI, outside of H2 Edge. So it is something that we are looking to do and maybe incorporate. But we also want to partner with other people. Maybe some people on the call have noticed how many different hydrogen workshops and events are going on, and I know that I'm being sent to a lot of, like, maybe too many of them, and instead of having like multiple events, maybe partnering with one or two or a bunch of organizations to be able to do this, and so we're not duplicating efforts, like I'm saying. But yeah, it is something that we are looking at supporting, is being that convener role. Yeah.
From the work that you've done so far, what do you think is the top demand kind of courses or degrees for the professional workforce around hydrogen? What do you think is, like, right now is, like, universities are like, hey, we should put some emphasis on this?
Yeah, I think it does depend on the location and your expertise. But like I said, electrochemistry is something that could be supported more, and those supporting roles that are becoming increasingly more important, integrating sustainability, life cycle assessments into existing courses are very important, because we also are hearing from universities that it is difficult to start a whole new course in any of their existing programs, and there probably won't be many solely hydrogen courses. Like, there could be some one-offs here or there, but mostly integrating those hydrogen courses into energy programs overall is what we have gotten a lot of feedback about. But yeah, so energy literacy overall, because it's probably important for anyone to better understand our energy infrastructure a little bit better, even if you're not a hugely technical person, that could be beneficial. So yeah, energy literacy, and then if you're getting a little bit more specific in hydrogen, probably electrochemistry stuff. Yeah.
So the very first project I ever worked with at DOE was standing up a general Energy 101 course for community colleges and universities. And we did a pilot initiative with University of Maryland and a couple other community colleges in the Maryland system. And that was eye-opening, because I think one of the things that we learned was it wasn't just around a literacy effort. It was the worst type of knowledge gap is the one that you think you know, but it's not correct what you know. And so I think in energy, there's a lot of that. So I think scale and conversion is really a tough kind of thing to understand. And if you don't understand that, then you don't know what the impact energy can have on society and beyond, in economics and labor and in workforce. Yeah, I think we may not have to take the whole time. I think we've covered a fair bit.
Yeah, one of the things that you're talking about right now, kind of getting back to that point, it reminded me that maybe don't distract. I mean, hydrogen is great and we need to learn about it more, but don't distract from the other energy fields as well. So because we're all facing a labor shortage in the energy fields. So supporting that overall energy literacy is very important, we found. Yeah.
So Anthony, I will open it up to you if you have any questions or if you want to sign us off.
No questions. Interested in the workshops for 2025 though, under this umbrella with EPRI. I think definitely the audience would be interested in that as well. So I'll be on the lookout for that. And but with that being said,
we're not 100% sure we're going to have one, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the overview. Go ahead, Matt.
I'm sorry. One last question I forgot, and you probably said this already, but what was the time frame for the academic gaps and professional gaps analysis?
Yeah, and I kind of forgot to mention that we are working with universities on those capstone projects and also other universities already to do small student projects to kind of support that kind of gaps analysis work.
Okay.
A lot of students are very interested in AI, machine learning type things. And so integrating that, we found with students to kind of understand those workforce and training and skills need is kind of something we're doing with student projects. So that was one thing I forgot to mention, and that has to do with the gaps assessments. But I am not 100% sure when the gaps assessments will be ready, but they have to be out before September 2025, but they'll probably be out earlier in the year, earlier than that. Yeah.
All right.
And they do have to be openly available because they were supported by the Department of Energy, and so our resources have to be publicly available. So everyone on the call will be able to access those when they are available. And if you want to be added to the email, our email list, which we send out course reminders, you can email h2edge@epri.com, and then feel free to visit our website.
Great.
Perfect. Thanks, Crystal. This was awesome. We will stop the recording here shortly. We will upload this to our archived webinars page here probably within the next week and share the slides as well.
Yeah, and I'll just end by saying, again, anybody on the call, if you have suggestions for the next topic, past the ones that we've already been thinking about, or suggestions for collaboration, please reach out to us. We're really wanting to hear more, especially with the advent of the regional hub starting up in earnest. So yeah, thanks guys.
Thanks everyone.
Afternoon.
Bye.